Hi and welcome to the CAD and MPS plotting basics at the 12D Tech Forum. Some of you guys may have seen my previous training webinars on the MPS and the MPS structures, and I'm going to be running through a few of those concepts again today. So a bit of an agenda for the day. First up, we're going to do a short PowerPoint discussing the MPS itself and how it works. Then we're going to do a live 12D setting up an MPS file and plotting. We're going to run through the MPS nodes and subnodes. And finally, we'll give you a little bit of an introduction to the idea of referencing inside an MPS file. I'm Dylan Revel, I'm the Regional Sales Manager for 12D New Zealand. So to start off with, we're going to go, what is an MPS? Well, an MPS is a one-stop area for creating and managing all of your plotted outputs within 12D model. And this can be plan outputs or long sections or cross sections, basically all of the plotting features inside 12D model. This can be used from anything from a single page plot to a complete plotted set. And the important thing is that utilize the model as the one source of truth for your plotted outputs. So your plotted outputs are a snapshot of that model. And the MPS is created to maximize your time and time savings. So why would you use the MPS? Well, as I mentioned, the plotted output is a direct snapshot in time of the design. So you're plotting the model itself, and the data or the model is the one source of truth for those plots that it produces. Unfortunately, the industry still does require plotted outputs in some instances, so you do have to do some of your plans and your schematic long sections. But we're here to show you that you can do it in a smarter and a faster way. So what does an MPS produce? It produces a snapshot PDF files of the model, but using all of the comprehensive 12D model plot types. These PDFs are the record of the design at that particular point in time that you plotted. And to collaborate the model, i.e. share your model data, you're not going to do that with plans. Basically, you're going to export in a 3D format like BIM, the one source of truth model, to share the actual model data rather than just a drawing. And you can output much smarter PDF files than just a 2D plan. Now I'm going to play a little bit of a game, we'll call it the why would you game, and I'm sure that you guys will have some answers to some of these questions that I pose, but it really just goes back to the MPS is there to challenge the norms of what you may have been doing your plotting historically. First off, why would you export a static copy of the design and risk diversion? So why would you export the model data to something that can be edited and then changed, and you get changes or differences between the actual one source of truth model and this copy that's been floating out there? And why would you do plotting the same way you did 20 years ago with the same manual processes? There's smarter ways of doing it. Why would you insert things more than once if they're the same objects on different plots, like north points and text and title blocks in the norm? And probably one of the most controversial, why would you pay for an additional piece of software just to do your plotting? We're going to have a look at the MPS structure itself. So MPS plots are contained in a book, and the book is the top level container for everything that's going to be produced from this plot set. And you can have subnodes, be that symbols, text, or title blocks or whatever, on this book level. So on the example of the screenshot there, I've just got a piece of text, the watermark, which is on the book level. And so that watermark piece of text will be automatically referenced down to all of the chapters and all of the pages underneath the chapter. The next level down is a chapter. So an MPS can have chapters, and this chapter can contain many pages or different types of plots. And again, you can have subnodes attached to a chapter level, so they will be shared or referenced down with any pages that are underneath this chapter. And finally, a chapter has pages. And these pages, again, can have subnodes attached to them, but they're going to be specific to that one page that's plotted out. These can be all of your different frame types that I'll show you. You can reference symbols and text and title blocks on a page level as well. And probably the most important thing is all of these different subnodes that you have in these different levels can be referenced down to the levels below them. So you can reference from a book level to a chapter level and then even drill down into a page level. And that's the trick to not doing things twice or more. All right, we're going to jump on to the live demonstration of 12D model now, so I'll catch you in a bit. Okay, jumping into 12D. I've got the classic theme loaded up today, so it'll look a little bit more familiar for those of you who are coming over from version 14. Now, you'll never really start a multi-page plot from scratch, but for the purposes of the presentation today, I'm going to create one right from the beginning so you can see how you can start building up those nodes and subnodes and in a lesser portion you're referencing. You'll generally start with ones that have been created for you or you've created yourself for familiar plot compositions that you're going to use over and over again. So first off, we have a book level. Now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to fill in a file name to have the saved as. I'm going to call this my plot. And I'm going to write that file, and I'm going to continue to write that file for any changes that I make. So in the interface here, we've got some activation buttons on the left-hand side. You can see that we're looking at an overall book level. And we've got some settings in here on a book level that can be passed across to anything underneath that. So the sheet size and the background color, whether you want to preview, yes or no. Now this draw width is the draw width of your preview. So if you want to bump that up to 960, you'll see that the preview window is really just for taste on how large you want that. You can have active viewports, your active viewport line styles and your fills, and that's what's going to pop up on your 12D views. And if I was to plot out every single chapter within the book, I can tell 12D for the PDF file how I'd like that structured, whether a single file or a multiple file or just a chapter file. And I can choose my default plotter type from my standard 12D plotter. So I'm just going to set this as a 50% black string weight. I don't have to have a PDF file name filled in here. If that is left blank, it's just going to take whatever the book name is, and I might call this book name Survey Plots. And so if I don't have an overriding PDF file name, whenever I plot out this PDF, it's going to be called Survey Plots. So we currently have an overall book structure. The nodes and the subnodes that can be added to your composition are up here in the top right hand side. So you've got title block type subnodes, you've got all of your different frame types that you can put on your pages, plans, cross sections, long sections, perspectives, 3D PDFs and whatnot. And if you are referencing those from a higher level, you can actually just reference them down. You've got text and symbols and models, and you have your special chapters here for your special 12D plot types, your cross sections, your long sections and waterframes and whatnot. I'm going to add a subnode on a book level. I want whatever I put on this book level to be automatically passed across to all of the chapters and all of the pages underneath. And I'm just going to put a little bit of text here. And it's going to be free place text. I'm going to put it in the middle. And you'll see that that's added a text subnode on the book level. I'm going to call this stamp. I'm going to put some text in here, maybe draft. And I'm going to change those text properties, maybe make it a better text style than what's there already. Maybe Arial bold, give it a different color. I'll make it a red. Something like that. I'll make it 7 units high and I'll put a rotation value on it. So I'll put an angle of 45. If I set that, just fill in the other properties. You'll see that that has come up on the book level in the composition of the A3 sheet size that I've got. And I'll just leave that as it is for now. So any subnodes that I put on a book level will be automatically passed across to the chapters and the pages underneath. To insert a chapter, I just go into the insert or the new chapter. You'll see it's automatically added a chapter and that stamp has turned up on the chapter level because that's being referenced or passed across from the top. I'll leave these names as they are, chapter 1 and page 1, but you'll see you've got some familiar settings like the background color and the preview size. Anything that's grayed out and italic in either a chapter or a page level has the values being inherited from a higher level, in this case, i.e. the book. And if I were to plot out all of the pages underneath the chapter, again, I can tell it exactly what PDF format I'd like that in, the plotter type, and a PDF file name, which if is left blank is just going to be taking the chapter name. I can insert items on a chapter level. So if I insert subnodes on a chapter level, they're going to be passed across to any pages that are underneath that chapter. I'm going to insert a model subnode here, and this might be just something that you pulled in from your 12DA library, which is absolutely fantastic. And I have a model subnode. I'm going to create a model subnode underneath the chapter. I'm going to call this one notes, and I already, in a model, typing right, in our model I already have some notes under my stormwater group, or my tree, called notes plot. And you'll see that they've appeared down the bottom of the screen. So I can shift these anywhere that I'd like onto a chapter level. So I'll just use the pan option here, and I'm going to say, well, they're mostly going to go up the top left-hand side of the plots that I'm making. And so I've inserted that notes subnode on a chapter level, so that will automatically pass across to any of the pages that I've got underneath. Now to insert a page, I just go to the insert page option, and I'll call this page 1. Again, we've got grey and italic items that have been inherited from the levels above. And I've got plotter options specifically for if I just want to plot out this one page. If I wanted to plot the single page, I can go down and hit the plot. I can go up to a chapter level and hit plot to plot out all of the pages within the chapter level. Or if I wanted to plot the entire book, I can either go right up the top and hit the plot button, or I can just hit plot book. So you start to see a little bit of the structure as it's coming in here. We've got our book level, our chapter level, and our page level, and we've got a couple of subnodes on those different levels that are being passed down to any composition of the page that we're going to put together. Anything that you set up by that you can see on the tree, you can quite easily just copy those from one page to another or from one chapter to another using the copy and paste option, and I'll show you that once I've set up the actual page. So for the single page, I'm going to want to have a title block on this one page, so it's going to be particular. So on a page level, I'm going to go up to the title block option and create a title block. I'm going to tick on use a title file and hit set. And then under the user title info, this is where I'm going to choose my TBF file for what the title block is going to look like. And for the presentations, I'm just going to use the standard title block files that have been installed with the 12D build, which are under lib, and anything that's PW is obviously public works. So I'm going to use the public works A3 title block file and hit set. And you'll see that title block data pop up in the preview area, and anything that is filled in the user title info area, it will automatically appear on that particular, the appropriate place on the preview window. So I might just put in a drawing number for this instance, and maybe a drawing revision, and say for construction. And if I hit set on those, might be a little bit hard to see, but you'll see some information pop up on the title block in the preview area. I'm going to be doing a presentation on MPS for design, which will go more into drawing registers and how you can automatically populate your title blocks from a drawing register, which is a much more efficient way of doing things. Now let's get some data inside this actual page. To get information on a page, you just insert a frame and a different frame type. So I just wanted to make this initially a plan. So I'm going to go up to my insert frames, going to do a plan frame. I'm going to position over the preview where I want that plan frame to appear on the plot composition. And you'll see now that I've inserted a plan frame, I've got frame specific settings. In things like the plan frame 1, I might just call this survey plan. I have my frame color. And if I want that frame to be plotted out as part of the plot composition, I can have draw the viewport option as yes, but if I untick that, then it's not going to plot out that yellow rectangle when it comes out to my final PDF. We'll have a look at scales in a moment. And this model here is if you want to have that model activated or turned on 12D views so you can see exactly the positioning of your plot. I'm going to put this model name in here called plot frame. And you can have whiteouts or things behind that, and I'll show you that in a subplot frame. You can apply mapping files to your frame itself on either a page level or a chapter level or a book level. So for instance here I've got my survey data and it's in the raw colors that it is in the models, but if I would like all of that survey data or particular parts of that survey data to have different colors and line styles, I could apply a map file to that data on a frame by frame basis so it would look different on different plotted pages. And to get data into the view, it's a simple matter of going pick the view, pick some data you'd like to inherit from, and that will give you a preview of that data. And you can see side by side on the actual 12D view and on the preview pane for the MPS page exactly the area that's going to be plotted at that scale. At any time I can come and change the frame scale, change that down to 1 to 500. You'll see it change in the preview, and I can navigate that around. I can translate the position of that either by selecting the pan view, or I can just select translate, position that better exactly where I want it. You'll see the preview will update, or if I wanted to do it on the preview page itself, I can simply select the pan button, pick inside that frame and reposition that data exactly where I want, and it will show in that model on the 12D view. Now the data that you're plotting, you can plot whatever is currently shown, what models are activated inside a view, or view favorites, a much easier way of doing things. You can save away all of that list of models in the model order inside a file itself, and you don't actually have to worry about somebody coming in and messing up or closing your views or turning on and off models that you don't want in your plot. So view favorites are definitely the way to go when it comes to maintaining or saving away what data was actually produced on your plot itself. So when it comes to the plot, you'll see that in the preview pane I do have a raster in the view in the background. The rasters do not show up on your preview pane, but they do show up on the plot later on when you've plotted them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the actual size and position of this frame. You can edit any subnode at any time. Say for example the notes, you can go into the edit or the pan button, reposition those, or in this case in the frame itself I'm going to change some properties of the frame or the position of the frame by selecting on the edit button here. That will activate that frame in edit mode. You'll see some grips appear over the preview pane, and if I wanted to I can change the size and the position and move that particular frame around wherever I want to just by editing that subnode in the preview area. I can have subnodes attached to the frame or reference to the frame itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a north point symbol, but I'm going to make that symbol relative to the frame. So if I come up to the symbol subnode and I'm going to make it relative to a frame, select inside the frame I'd like to make it relative to, and you'll see that that north point's popped up, but the symbol subnode has popped up underneath that survey plan frame in the tree. So anything that I do to that frame is going to then be passed across to that particular symbol. I'm going to attach or make this symbol relative to the top right hand side of the frame, and I'm going to make that maybe 20 millimeters in from the left and 20 millimeters down from the top, and you'll see that that north point has changed. I can actually just select the edit button at any time, and I can go and edit and manually drag around the position of that symbol subnode if I really wanted to. Now the nice thing is that north point is relative to the frame itself. So if I was to change my plot composition in the frame, in this case if I change the rotation angle, if I went minus 30 degrees, you'll see the data in the preview pane change, but you'll also see that that north point that is relative to the frame has automatically repositioned itself based on the north point area in the frame in the plot. So we can have subnodes attached to frames that are relative to the frames themselves. And we can do the same thing with text. So while I'm on the frame, I'm going to go into text and I'm going to put some text that's relative to the frame. And I'm going to make it relative to this frame here. And I'm going to enter some text. First thing I want to do is make it actually look a little bit better. So I'm going to choose a 5mm style. And if I hit set, you'll see that that text has changed in the look of it, in the feel. This text is going to be relative to the bottom center of the frame itself. And so I'm going to go right in the middle of the frame and maybe go -5mm and hit set. Or maybe 10 would be better. And that's going to reposition that text relative to the frame. Anything that happens to the frame, that text will move with it because it's anchored just to the bottom center of the frame. But rather than come into here and say, this is what I actually want the title of this frame composition to be, or what the scale is, we can enter variables. So rather than me type in what I want the plan to be called, I can actually just adopt or inherit whatever's filled in this frame itself. And to do that, we just enter plot variables. And the plot variable to go and inherit or go and find the frame name is $frame. And then I might want to put some pre-text on something. Scale is 1, 2, and then $scale is the variable for automatically going and inheriting the scale from that frame itself. So if I hit set there, you'll see that we've got survey plan with a scale of 1 to 500. It is relative to the frame. So anything that happens to the frame automatically changes that text. For example, if I go and change the scale to 1000, you'll see that that scale text is instantly updated or automatically updated because it's pulling those values from the frame. If you have an additional scale variable inside your title block, and this is pretty important, and you would like this frame to be the one that provides the scale for the overall title block, because you may have insets, you may have multiple different frames on a planned composition. There is a tick button, this one here, used to populate title block. That's really important, so you can decide exactly which frame populates the title block variables there. So I've got some subnodes, I've got some text that's relative to the frame. Really the only thing that's left to do is go and plot that out to a PDF, and I'll just hit the plot button. This will take a few seconds to produce that plot. Okay, and you'll see that it's plopped up with that plotted composition that I've very roughly and very quickly put together in a PDF file. So you have a book level, you have a chapter level, and you have a page level, and we have some initial references there. We have a title block that's being referenced down to the page, and we have notes from the chapter that's being referenced down. And you can get really, really clever with your references and passing things across. Now, at any stage, if you would like to take that whole bunch of data, in this case the page, and produce a second page, you can copy and paste any node or subnode in the MPS file. So the copy button over here, and if I then just directly go paste, it's going to paste a page number 2 with exactly the same nodes and subnodes very quickly. So if you set up one sheet, then it's really, really quick to go and set up your other sheets. You'd obviously just translate or move the data that's being plotted within that sheet itself. If for sheet number 2 or page number 2, I didn't actually want that page done, I can at any time go and deactivate a subnode. So I can deactivate that, so you'll see that that page number 2 is no longer part of the book itself. And I can reactivate any subnodes. And then let's say, for example, I don't want the notes on my page number 2. And what you can do is you can reference those down. So if I reference that notes model, rather than just place a model, I can reference it from a higher level. And if I go to the reference item here, and I can go and see all of the upper level model references that I can go and drag down. And in this case, I could override that, or I can actually edit the position. So if that's in the way for page number 2, I can go and reposition that data from that model into another space on my composition, but it's still taking exactly the same data from that overall model. I could change the model itself, and if I didn't want the notes on page number 2, I can simply reference that down to a page level and I can deactivate that. So those notes will appear on every other page in the chapter apart from page number 2. So it's very easy to follow the structure of an MPS file when you're starting to look at book levels, chapter levels, and page levels. You'll start to get into your subnodes and your different frame types. But what I do want to show you last off is a plan is not just a dumb, boring 2D PDF. There's lots of different frame types inside 12D that you can have access to that are very handy. And I'm just going to insert a new chapter. And I'm going to call this chapter 3D data. And I'm going to take that same title block. I'm just going to copy that subnode from the first chapter page. And in this case, I'm going to paste it into a chapter level. So that will be applicable for any of those there. And if I just go set, you'll see that that title block is now under my second chapter. I'll just minimize that so it doesn't get in the way. And under this new chapter, 3D data, what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a new page. And this is just to give you an indication of how you can use different frame types. You can have lots of different types of compositions. You can have your plan data plotted on the left-hand side, and you can have your 3D data on the right-hand side. But there's lots of different frame types within 12D. And one of those frame types, which is really great, is a 3D PDF type frame. So rather than just have a static plan, you can do a 3D PDF that can be opened up in Adobe Reader. And so I'm going to put a 3DF frame type on this particular sheet. And I can reference the data that's going into that 3D info either from a view or from a favorite. So I'm just going to reference whatever's currently shown in this Perspective OpenGL View 3D. And if I just select that, and then what that's done is it's inserted a 3D PDF type frame into the sheet composition itself, and that will allow me to basically plot that out and open that up and have an interactive type of plot. So as you go through, you can experience or experiment with all of the different frame types. As I say, I'll be going through in a little bit more detail the different frame types and referencing in my MPS for Design presentation. But I'm just going to write that MPS file back out, and yeah, thank you very much, and I'm sure you'll have some questions that you can put in the chat that I can answer later on.